Daryl Morey has done a really good job as the general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers since taking his tenure here. He has navigated some really difficult situations, such as the Ben Simmons holdout, the James Harden trade request, trading out of the Al Horford contract, and a number of other things along the way. But I do think he's misguided in his approach to this NBA trade deadline. In this video, I'm going to break down why and why I think he may potentially squander the championship window around Joel Embiid. Now, before I fully get into it, I do want to make sure you guys are smashing that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 79.7% of you guys have not subscribed to the channel just yet. We want to get to that 3,000 mark before the end of January. Need about 100 more subscribers to hit that mark right there. So make sure you're smashing that button. Support us here on the channel. We have some big plans right here on the Sixers Digest, and this Sixers team is giving us plenty to talk about. So to break into why I am fully fired up and want to talk about why Daryl Morey is wrong, I want to begin by digging back to some quotes from Mory that came at the beginning of this year. Now, we'll put the little asterisk and note next to it that these quotes came before the James Harden trade, and obviously a ton has changed since then, but I did want to read them in their entirety. So during an interview on 97.5 The Fanatic with Anthony Gargano, who has since left the station, Morey explained why maintaining the flexibility has been such a big organizational focus. Morey said, quote, "What we're attempting to do is have the best team possible this year, but also have the ability that if we get into a next season situation, to be a very unique team with the most cap room of a team that's as good as us. That's a very unique situation to hear." Mory also highlighted how the NBA's new collective bargaining agreement could make that even more advantageous for the Sixers. The full array of financial penalties for the league's most expensive teams take into effect next offseason, which he expects will put, quote, "massive constraints downward on salaries in the league." Moore also says, quote, "So us being the only team with a top player that a player can join is going to put us in a very unique situation." Morey hesitated to call this strategy a 2-year plan, as he noted these Sixers are still, quote, "trying to win this season coming up." However, he acknowledged that they, quote, "have to keep an eye on how we're going to compete moving forward as well." Now, the most important notable part of this line is this happened before the James Harden deal, that there was a lot more uncertainty entering the season, that it was unclear what this team would look like, and that is why the situation has changed. That based on the on-court product that we have seen this year, there is zero reason why this team is not looking to contend for a championship. That you look around the Eastern Conference, it's deep and getting better. That we're seeing the Miami Heat trade for Terry Rozier. We just saw the Indiana Pacers trade for Pascal Siakam. The New York Knicks adding OG Anunoby. These are win-now pieces that have made teams that are behind them better and more competitive, while the Sixers are sitting still and sitting on their hands. Even look at Milwaukee, who traded for Damian Lillard ahead of the season. The Boston Celtics, who brought in Kristaps Porzingis. What have these Sixers done to get that significantly better? They have not matched this number, and dating back to the past playoff shortcomings, those have to be addressed. Now, the biggest pro of the James Harden deal, in my opinion, was the ability to extend the window a little bit to kick the can down the line. That there weren't going to get equal value of a player of James Harden in that deal. The ultimate return of that was players like Nico Batum has been absolutely phenomenal for this team. Guys like Marcus Morris, Robert Covington, KJ Martin, who have each had their moments and flashes, but the real prize of that trade was the draft picks that came with it. And the appeal of that is that you can hold those draft picks and wait to strike when the market is hot, when the moment is right, and when the players are available. Well, guess what? That moment is now. And if this cap space plan to preserve flexibility for the offseason is still the priority, that is flat out wrong. That I wholeheartedly disagree with that, with the number one reason being that you look around the modern NBA, stars just don't leave in free agency anymore. That this is no longer kind of the open bidding war that we see on a regular basis. Looking back the past couple years, I would probably say Jalen Brunson is the biggest free agent to move markets just straight up in free agency. Him obviously coming from the Dallas Mavericks to the New York Knicks. And Jalen Brunson is awesome, a guy that I absolutely love and an all-star for a reason, a phenomenal player. I'm not shortcoming him whatsoever. But my point here being that it is a limited number of players that take these opportunities. And to full out look towards this upcoming free agent class, there's nobody out there that is worth waiting for that highly. That Klay Thompson at the top of the class, James Harden, Tobias Harris, we've seen how those stories have gone. Pascal Siakam, all signs pointing to him returning to Indiana on a massive payday there. Gordon Hayward, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, Mike Conley, Joe Harris, Spencer Dinwiddie, D'Angelo Russell. These are not the type of names that move the meter from a championship perspective. Now, there's a couple of opportunities of guys that could sneak out. Paul George getting a little bit of attention there. LeBron James, some uncertainty, who could opt out of his contract and become a free agent if he desires. Sure, that changes the picture a little, but that's not worth waiting for any of these guys. That is such a far thing, and especially if you take into effect the track record of Sixers players or players signing with these Sixers in free agents, The best player that has come to Philadelphia in free agency over the past, dating back however many decades you want to look, is likely Al Horford. And we all saw how that worked out. And frankly, the Sixers had to overpay to offload that contract because of how miserable he was here. Now, I get it. With Joel Embiid, with Tyrese Maxey, it is a more appealing place. That only the Orlando Magic would have more cap space to spend on these potential free agents than these Sixers. But I think it's just flat out wrong to sit back and wait for the offseason for that to be the plan. This is especially the case, and when I mention this cap space plan, it's very clear what the Sixers are doing. That you look at their current cap table, look at all this money that is coming off the books. That is Joel Embiid, it is Paul Reed, and it's Jaden Springer are the only guys under contract on this roster. That is why they opted to bring in the Patrick Beverleys, the Kelly Oubres, the guys on these one-year contracts, even the return in the James Harden trade, Marcus Morris, KJ Martin, Nico Batum, Robert Covington, all guys that will be expiring contracts coming off the books this year. Those are also repackageable assets. Those can be floated out in new deals. Marcus Morris, with his $17 million cap hit, is probably at the top of the line, and while I think Morris has overplayed my expectations for him in a pretty significant way, that's still a number that makes it easy to trade with and a likely candidate in my mind. And frankly, I just would not be heartbroken if Marcus Morris is not around here for the long haul. As much as I'm happy he got the key to the city, loves being in Philadelphia, all those things, just is not quite a missing cog on a championship team, I feel. Now, this is especially the case, and especially a source of frustration for me, when we're seeing reports like this. Paul Hudrick and Kyle Neubeck each reporting that the Sixers are unlikely to make a big push for DeJounte Murray, and Toronto is looking for a, quote, haul in return for Bruce Brown. Daryl Morey stated on 97 The Fanatic that the trades that are most helpful happen at the deadline. While I don't think he's quite wrong about that happening at the deadline thing, because obviously there is a sense of urgency and a deadline that teams have to meet, the price also goes up during that time. That as we're seeing other contenders make these moves, there is a finite amount of players that are available for trade that can help a championship contender. Well, they're getting plucked from around the league already, while the Sixers just sit back and wait. And if you miss the boat on a number of these guys, there's not more that you can do. Now, I get it. Daryl Morey, I don't want to come down too hard on him. For the most part, I think he's been excellent as the Sixers' leader in the front office. That I think a lot of his decision-makings have gone under the radar, and frankly, he deserves more credit than he gets nationally. But this is still not an opportunity that can fumble. Joel Embiid is having a historic season, the greatest scoring season of all time with the numbers that he's producing. Only Wilt Chamberlain, the only other player in NBA history to average more points per minute, over 1 point per minute, more points scored on the season than minutes played. All these ridiculous stats, saw the 70-point game. The accolades that he's raking up are more and more just notable, impressive, however you want to word it. But that's all the more reason why you have to give this team the opportunity. While there are flashes where Joel carries this team to absolute excellence and they look great, when you dig beyond that, it is not the strongest roster. That when you're talking about Tyrese Maxey, who I absolutely love and has stepped up to every challenge, are we sure he's ready to be a legitimate number 2 in a championship contender? That 23-year-old Tyrese Maxey is ready to step up to that moment? Are we sure that a guy like Tobias Harris is ready to be a number 3 when we've seen time and time again that his performances have dropped in the postseason? A guy like DeAnthony Melton and Kelly Oubre being the legitimate tertiary scorers that this team needs? Because if you're pinning me down and asking me, I'm not confident in that. That I think there's better options out there that are worth potentially overpaying for now for the actual chance at a championship. While the East has gotten stronger, it's not impenetrable. That this is not the Kevin Durant-led Golden State Warriors that the Sixers have to go through. The Celtics are a very good team, but they have flaws. They're not perfect. The Milwaukee Bucks are kind of blowing up in the process. They just brought in Doc Rivers as the head coach, and we've seen how those playoff shortcomings go. Looking beyond that, teams like the Heat, the Pacers, the Knicks, the Cavs, all teams that are good, but not teams that strike fear into the heart. And when you have Joel Embiid, who is playing like the best player on the planet, you have a chance every single night. So give Joel Embiid and give the rest of this roster the optimum chance to win this season. That you get a finite number of years with a superstar the caliber of Joel Embiid, especially with the little injury concerns and other issues that come with a big man. There is a limited number of opportunities to truly win a championship around it. This year is firmly within that window, and it would be an absolute shame to waste it by not going all out at this trade deadline. We've talked about plenty of names that could make sense or may not for these Sixers with the deadline approaching. More names are popping up day in and day out. The rumor mill is churning, and the countdown to the deadline is under 2 weeks now. So Daryl Morey better get active, get in the lab, figure something out, and give this team a chance to compete. As currently constructed, this Sixers team is good, but they're not a championship contender. They are not of the level of a Boston Celtics, of a Milwaukee Bucks, of a Denver Nuggets. They are not at that level yet. but I do genuinely believe they could with one or two pieces added. So it is time to step up to the plate, find those pieces in the open market, and make the necessary trades to improve this roster. This Sixers team has a greater chance at a championship than just about any other that I can remember in my lifetime. I feel stronger about it than even the 2018-19 team that this is a different Joel Embiid. This is a different version of the best player on the planet, the reigning MVP of the league. He has taken his games to new heights this specific season, and those are all more the reason why the rest of the roster has to match it. So I do want to hear from you guys in the comments. Are you persuaded by the Daryl Morey cap space approach, the flexibility? And I also like to give a quick shout out to Trill Rodu of the You Know Ball podcast, who keeps calling it the cap space plan as an emphasis on the cap, that Daryl Morey is just lying and that this is all posturing, that he will make the big swing. I hope that is the case. I hope this is all a public facade, that he is just putting these Sixers in the best case and best place to negotiate. But if it's not, if he does not make a massive move or at least improve this roster to some extent, this is a huge failure on Daryl Morey's resume, and one that he may not ever have a chance to rewrite. I know that he has the extension. I know that he's here for the long haul. But you cannot guarantee with the rest of those seasons as the leader of this organization that you have a better chance to win a championship than this here very season. It is time to capitalize, and the best way to do that is by making the necessary trades to make this team a legitimate championship contender. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, get us to 3,000 subs before the end of January. We got plenty more to break down with the trade deadline coming up, and even more following as we hit the home stretch of the postseason. Thank you guys for watching once again, and I'll talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.